An impressive blowup of thunderstorms across the southwest Caribbean this afternoon. Could this become something tropical? Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. Great to see you on this Tuesday afternoon. Thank you so much for finding my channel. I do daily forecasts across the Caribbean and the Bahamas, and of course this time of the year we talk a lot about the tropics as well. The goal I have for Meteo Mundo is to present your weather in a way that you've never seen before, and part of that is being able to use the technology I have to really talk about what's happening here and now with live satellite data, live lightning data, live radars, and then getting into the forecast. So for today, I was putting together a video and the forecast and my graphics like I do every day. And every hour I would look at what's happening in the Southwest Caribbean. And I have to tell you, over the last few hours, it's gotten more and more impressive. A massive blow up of thunderstorms. So we have to focus and talk about this first, and then we'll get into the rest of the forecast here. Because again, this is an area that if you have been watching the videos, we've been monitoring very closely. Now again, look, you and I are basically analyzing this in real time together right now, okay? So jumping on here, over the last few hours, look at this impressive blow up of thunderstorms, okay? Those blacks and those whites are very high cloud tops. They're very concentric, meaning very circular. They're expanding a bit. It's still a very relatively small area, but this is an impressive area of thunderstorms that are developing with a lot of lightning. That's the enhanced satellite imagery. Let's take a look at the water vapor imagery, and you can see all the moisture content. The greens is pretty deep moisture. The blues are significant moisture. And again, an expanding area with some lightning. The lower levels of the atmosphere, water vapor imagery. Again, an extremely impressive system. Now look, I want to be clear, as of the recording of this late Tuesday afternoon, the National Hurricane Center has nothing on this area. They don't have any statements that's saying they're monitoring this for any potential tropical development. But regardless of that, we're looking at the here and now, and this is an impressive blow up of tropical moisture in the Southwest Caribbean. And again, this is an area that the European model has been highlighting for potential tropical depression development during this time frame. And I've shown you that over the past several videos. So that's some of the satellite presentation. This is the visible satellite imagery. And again, it's very just clear to see that there's very dense overcast there. We have some very high cloud tops. We have a little bit of outflow, especially on the northwest sides. A lot of different things I can do here at Meteo Mundo. One of the ones I can do is I can obviously bring on our reporting station data, but I also have access to live buoy data, and I have access to live ships observations as well. So if there's any ships within this area, we can also monitor their information if they're sending it out. And obviously there are some buoys in the Caribbean to monitor as well. Nothing too close to home, but we can see we've had some 25-mile-an-hour wind gusts to the north and to the east. But we also, of course, have our reporting stations. And there is a small island off the coast of Nicaragua called San Andreas, and we do have its information there. Now, they had about a 30-mile-an-hour wind gust with some of the storms that came through in the late morning. They are getting back into some of those heavier storms, so I'll be monitoring that. But there's obviously some winds of 25 to 30 miles an hour in gusts within some of the storms that are developing. Again, reiterating that at this point in time, the National Hurricane Center does not have any statements regarding this area. But obviously here, again, just analyzing this in real time with you guys, this is a very impressive area that I'm going to have to closely monitor, okay? And you can see some of that moisture is feeding back to the north and to the east over Jamaica and portions of Hispaniola, and we'll be monitoring that. But again, this is the real-time information you get here at Meteo Mundo. Now again, as I have mentioned, the European model has discussed the opportunity for a tropical depression in this area, and this is from now over the next 3 days. And again, the chance is fairly high. And we'll look at the GFS model coming up as well. All right. But again, certainly that opportunity is going to be a possibility, at least on the models. And we'll see how this plays out. But a potential area of interest, absolutely. Now, speaking of the GFS model, I'm going to go back over to what's called the wind vector product here. And I've tried to make it a little bit easier for you guys to see. So I'm going to put this into motion, and it's going to look a little bit weird on this big scale, but I want this to make sure it loops over the next 5 days, and then I'm going to zoom in. The first thing I'm going to do actually is go back over to the normal arrows, okay? Again, if you joined me for yesterday's video, I talked about how the GFS model had a very weak wind field. Even though there was a little bit of spin in the Southwest Caribbean, there was a very weak wind field around that area of vorticity. The winds were only around 10 miles an hour, okay? Well, that's changed a little bit, okay? You can see that there's still fairly light winds early in the period, but when I stop this here and we go back through time, again, today's the 28th, so you can see there's not any big kink in the wind field now. But down towards Panama tomorrow and then into our Thursday and then Friday and Saturday, look right towards the coastline of Nicaragua. Now we have a little bit more concentrated turn, okay? But the bigger thing about that is that the wind speeds are much more significant, okay? Now you're looking at wind speeds, and I hope you guys can clearly see this. Let me take the spacing just a little bit more here. 25 to 30 knots. These are knots, by the way. The whites are over 30, all right? Not tropical depression, but darn close. But certainly the wind field on the GFS here in the Southwest Caribbean has gotten more impressive. So obviously it's an area that we have to monitor. And again, if the National Hurricane Center comes out with any statement regarding this area, I will make a separate video to highlight that. But I can't not discuss this area because, again, just analyzing in real time how impressive that is. Now, obviously, we also have our tropical wave moving through the greater Antilles, and some of the moisture from what's developing here in the Southwest Caribbean is feeding into places like Jamaica and Hispaniola and Eastern Cuba and the Turks and the Caicos and Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. So we're going to see a few showers developing here. Jamaica, I've mentioned it the last couple of days. Your rain chances only go higher through the week. Right now, you're just seeing a few showers. You'll get a little bit more in the way of a few isolated storms this afternoon, but your rain chances will go higher and higher as whatever this ends up becoming moves northwest and takes that richer moisture back over your area. Good blow up of thunderstorms this afternoon over portions of eastern Cuba. We continue to see some scattered rain develop over Hispaniola, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic. Again, it hasn't been anything extremely concentrated at the hour. And obviously, when it's not raining, it's still very hot and humid in this area, but certainly places like Puerto Plata and Santo Domingo and Punta Cana in store for at least the opportunity for a few more showers. Sorry about that, guys. We're seeing a few more showers and storms develop over the Turks and Caicos and additional showers and storms right now over Puerto Rico and the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands, especially right now over Puerto Rico, where we do have a few flood advisories here in the late afternoon for the northern side of the island, specifically for the northwest side of the island, Aguadilla, on over towards Isabela. Again, you can see the blow up of storms here. This is our enhanced satellite imagery. But again, here at Meteo Mundo, I've got access to the live radar out of Puerto Rico. There's a couple of different radar sites. We'll look at the southeast side here. And again, you can clearly see those storms on the northwest side of the island there. Aguadilla, Isabela, flood advisory, urban and small stream. Again, it's the lowest category. But always check in with your local government for any of these flood advisories, watches, or warnings. I just pass along official information. At this point in time, they're just advisories. 1 to 2 inches of rain, and an additional 1 to 2 inches is possible there. And of course, for our friends in Puerto Rico, that's the National Weather Service out of San Juan. Still some scattered showers through Vieques and Culebra, St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. John. But again, it's a little bit drier in those areas for today. Can't rule out an isolated shower, but generally speaking here, we're just looking at some scattered rain, but more concentrated in Puerto Rico in areas off towards the west. It's going to be mainly a dry forecast through the Leeward Islands today. Can't rule out a couple of showers. Now, there's a few different tropical waves to talk about, okay? We've got the one right now impacting the greater Antilles. There is another one south and east of Trinidad, and I'll be monitoring that. This one looks to move more well south of the Windward Islands. Can't rule out it trying to develop a few showers for Trinidad and Tobago over the next couple of days, but I don't have big hopes on that. And there's a more significant tropical wave that has just moved off the west coast of Africa. This one I'll be monitoring for the next week or so ahead. So 3 different tropical waves to talk about here. That one's obviously fairly impressive, but it's nowhere near our area. So that's what's happening right now. All right. Obviously, there's some active weather to talk about. Let's take a look at temperatures real quickly before we get into the forecast, because I know I've been mentioning, obviously, the rain and the storms, but we also need to talk about how rough it is for our friends who aren't seeing any of the rain. So let me pause this and bring it up to speed here late on this Tuesday afternoon. These are your feels like temperatures. And again, we've been monitoring this for the last several weeks, but for the Yucatan and for Belize and Guatemala and Honduras, you still have feels like temperatures about 110. Again, 110 Fahrenheit is 43.3 degrees Celsius. 90 degrees Fahrenheit is 32, a little more than 32 degrees Celsius. So you get the idea how hot it is here, okay? Certainly coastal Nicaragua is going to see more rain. I'm hoping for coastal Honduras and trying to get some of this tropical moisture to feed to the north and to the west, and we'll look at that. But again, obviously where it's not raining, even in the Cayman Islands, Georgetown right now, a current feels like temperature of 106 degrees. We've had a few storms today over portions of the ABC Islands, Aruba and Curacao specifically. So again, if you live in this area, drop it in the comments section below. Bon Air is still in at 102. And then again, as I mentioned, it's a drier day in the Leeward Islands. Look at St. Lucia's feels like temperature, 108. Port of Spain right now, 105. In some areas, again, by the way, where it's not raining in Puerto Rico, there's a heat advisory, and you get the idea. Christiansted, St. Croix, 105, 104 in Ponce, 103 in San Juan. Even Isabela has had a few showers around, 103, St. Bartholomew, 102, Anguilla, 100. It's a rough day because all that tropical moisture is now off towards your west, and you're getting back into the heat. So a rough afternoon as far as that goes, guys. All right, let's get into the forecast, shall we? And as I'm doing so, again, thank you so much for liking this video. If you haven't subscribed to Meteo Mundo, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now. And thank you so much for sharing this with those who you think might get something out of it. Of course, I'd love to hear from you guys. If you have a specific question about the forecast, feel free to drop it in the comments section below. But if nothing else, let me know where you're viewing from and what the weather's been like in your area. Always love to get those comments. So let's take a look at the GFS model over the next 5 days and see how this plays out. Again, the GFS kind of creates two pieces of energy. The first is going to drive north and east over the next 2 to 3 days over Jamaica and Hispaniola and the Turks and Caicos, portions of eastern Cuba. But you notice again, I mentioned that wind field, right? That stayed behind. There is a kind of secondary area here that lags behind, and that's going to be a very interesting feature, all right? And where that might want to try and travel, because you notice that on the GFS model how elongated this rain gets. This is a couple thousand miles wide, guys, okay, of all of this rain. So you have one piece that moves fairly quickly north and east, and then you have that secondary piece that sticks behind. So let's see how this plays out for our area. We'll start off in Jamaica. And again, for my friends in Kingston and Portmore and Spanish Town, rain chances go higher and higher. And of course, we're going to look at how much rain we could see in this area coming up. Now, again, over the next 5 days, you're kind of going to be on the doorstep of some of that heaviest rain. And the potential is that even Sunday and Monday of next week, that this rainfall could be even more impressive. But certainly, higher rain chances will be coming. Some of these will be some good tropical downpours. Some of this could be some lightning to go along with it as well. And again, you can just kind of see that even this 5 days out is on the doorstep of getting into your area. And I'm going to show you the more extended forecast coming up. But there are many, many signs that point to this ends up being a very wet period for Jamaica, especially beginning this weekend and into early next week. Again, we've already had some heavier rain over Hispaniola. Now today it's been a little bit more scattered, and I do expect it to be a little bit more scattered over the next few days. But again, you can see the same situation as we get into Friday and Saturday. That moisture plume from the south and west comes right back over the area, and the rain becomes more persistent and becomes more widespread, and it becomes heavier. So another wetter forecast for our friends in Santiago de los Caballeros, and Santo Domingo, Punta Cana, Lacai, and Port-au-Prince, the entire island, something I'll be monitoring. But again, this is a huge fetch of tropical moisture that feeds into this area. And we'll see how it plays out as far as pinpointing where that axis of heaviest rain is going to be. Certainly Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands will be on the cusp of that. I would say the farther west that you live, the better chance that you have. So the Cayman Islands, the Turks and Caicos get into it. western sides of Puerto Rico, maybe all of Puerto Rico, maybe some of the Virgin Islands. You get as far east as the Lesser Antilles, and it becomes a little bit more spotty in nature. And we'll just see again how that evolves. I mentioned Trinidad and Tobago. You can see that even this tropical wave coming in, a lot of that energy stays just off towards the south. So slightly higher chance for rain in Trinidad and Tobago compared to the other islands, but Grenada North, Barbados, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Martinique, Dominica, Montserrat, Guadeloupe, areas like that, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua, Barbuda, all about a 20% chance for showers every day in the afternoon, slightly higher for Trinidad and Tobago. Now again, the areas that desperately need this rain with the GFS, certainly coastal showers, Nicaragua, Honduras, trying to drive a few showers inland. I would say coastal Belize, just based on the wind field, could see a few light showers. Is it drought busting? Is it going to really help the wildfires? Is it going to really help the heat? No. But again, we're trying to erode away this huge area of high pressure that has kept us dry for weeks and weeks. And it's going to take some time, but we're trying to change the pattern to get those rain chances back in. Now, as far as the Bahamas, again, it's been a relatively quiet forecast. We've had a few afternoon storms almost each and every afternoon, and that's something I'll be monitoring as well. And that's what I expect. We're going to shake out a few storms each afternoon for Freeport, Lucaya, and Nassau, and Eleuthera, and Abaco, and Alistown there in Bimini. Nothing very concentrated, but where those storms get going, heavy rain and lightning. Temperatures aren't all that bad. Generally going to be in the upper 80s to the lower 90s. One of the areas that's actually a little bit more pleasant outside. So that's what it looks like as far as over the next 5 days. Now, let's get into the potential for some rain. But the first thing I want to do is I mentioned I'm going to extend this out a little bit, and that's exactly what I'm going to do here. Again, the biggest thing is that, when we're looking at these models, guys, we're not talking something that's going to develop next week. This is within the next 5 days. Everything that I've just mentioned is within the next 5 days. So now let's look at days 6, 7, and 8. And again, what we can see is this secondary piece of energy here that develops right there is going to, on the GFS model, take about the same path and move back into portions of the Greater Antilles. Moves through Jamaica and Hispaniola and the Turks and Caicos and gets out of the way, okay? So that's why I said Jamaica. Yeah, you've got some rain coming in over the next 5 days, but maybe it's even a little bit more early next week. Doesn't mean that there won't be some heavier rain set up in your area between now and then. But again, this is a very impressive moisture fetch that's going to be moving through, okay? You can see that. The other thing I want to look at here before we look at potential rainfall totals is our vorticity. And again, what that is spin in the atmosphere, okay? So let me just find that here real quick. I got a lot of different things to look at. Now I know why I couldn't find it. I was looking at the wrong product. Good. Let me take off our wind vectors. Excellent. And let me loop this up. So while this is looping up again, if you haven't liked the video, thanks so much for doing that. And thanks for sticking with me here. Again, honestly analyzing this in real time because I was putting together a certain video and then I looked down here and I said, you know what? We got to really pay more attention to what's happening in the Southwest Caribbean for today, despite the fact that there's no official statements about it. So this is the vorticity. This is the spin, okay? And again, it's very clear to see what the GFS model is doing. As I've mentioned, there's almost a couple of chunks, right? Watch this first little piece of energy right here move up. That's the first piece right there. There's the second piece left behind, okay? And there's even some broader spin kind of left over here in the Southwest Caribbean. So again, it's just a very clear visual representation of the spin in the atmosphere. And obviously, that doesn't necessarily mean tropical activity, but it does mean that we have some turning with the winds at the surface and with height, and it's something to monitor. And obviously, within some of the cores of this, we can get some very gusty conditions as well, and that's something to watch out for. And again, you notice how quickly this kind of gets eaten up into the Western Atlantic here as a very large latitude storm coming in, mid-latitude storm, excuse me. It gets caught up with that and quickly works its way to the north and to the east. But just a pretty impressive feature here to monitor over the next several days. Let's take a look at our total precipitation, guys. We're going to look at both the GFS and the European models. Now, again, we are looking at, let's see here, that's at least, 6 days out, which is fine. It's fine. And again, there'll be some things to emphasize with this. First thing is, again, very, very heavy rainfall in the open waters. Again, a couple of the coastal islands there, or the offshore islands, excuse me, of Nicaragua, including San Andreas. But again, even coastal areas maybe pick up 3, 4, 5 inches of rain. It's going to be pretty heavy rainfall for Costa Rica as well. We try and get at least a little bit of rain through a decent part of Honduras as well. Okay? May not be a lot, could be in a couple of spots. El Salvador with some decent rain. I don't have much yet from my friends in Belize, unfortunately, and for anyone in the Yucatan. For the Cayman Islands, you're kind of on the edge of it, but we'll get you some showers. Hopefully, especially again, days 4 or 5 and beyond as this moisture moves up. Now, what's very interesting and we have to watch out for is where this swath of heaviest rain comes in. Because wherever it does, it could produce some monumental rainfall totals. Certainly too early in the forecast to start pinpointing where we could see extremely significant rain. But there's a lot of moisture coming up into this area here in the next 4 to 8 days. Okay, so you can just see again on the GFS model painting this on. Now, the interesting thing about Jamaica is in this time frame, there's not a ton. But if I take this out just a little bit later in time here, and I go out to the 4th, which is basically a week from now, you can see that those totals get a lot higher, okay? And you can see that these numbers get into the several inch category in Jamaica, but again, now you're talking about a heck of a lot of rain wherever that big swath is. And again, I'm not ready to discuss potential rainfall totals in any one area, but I want you guys to get an idea of what the GFS model is doing and a general idea of where it's trying to pull significant rain, okay? So all of these areas, I'll be monitoring it for you each and every day. I mentioned Trinidad, and again, certainly the opportunity for a little bit more rain down there, especially later in the period, okay? It's more scattered through the rest of the Leeward Islands. Puerto Rico, again, could get in on the act. Same thing for the Turks and the Caicos, okay? And again, not much rain for the Bahamas outside of the isolated showers and storms. Now here's the European model, next 7 days in millimeters, okay? You looked at inches. Now luckily, this is an easy conversion. 25 millimeters is 1 inch of rain, okay? So 100 millimeters, 4 inches of rain. That's gonna be our brighter reds. You see a lot of that in that same area. So very confident that we're gonna have 4+ inches of rain in a lot of the areas where all this tropical moisture is tracking. But we have upwards of 200 to 250 millimeters of rain, okay? Maybe 8 inches or so, and that is bullseyed through portions of coastal Nicaragua, and then just south of Jamaica. You can guys see those areas. ABC Islands are drier, and maybe on the European model, just a few showers as far north as Belize, and maybe even the Caribbean coastline of the Yucatan as well. But obviously, again, and the reason why I want to point this out is the European model has about the same track as the GFS with the richest and the deepest moisture, pulling it back northeast. And we talked about it in yesterday's video. With this huge area of high pressure, this dominant ridge, this high, subsident sinking air, almost like a shield, it's going to be very difficult for this system to go much farther north and west. It almost is forced to turn quickly to the north and to the east. So that's why there's fairly good agreement and where that heavier axis of rainfall is going to be moving. Let's get back over to our satellite imagery again. And just one last stop. Again, friends, this is what I'm watching here. Again, this is the live satellite presentation on this Tuesday afternoon. Again, if there is an official statement from the Hurricane Center between now and tomorrow, I'll come back out with another video and we'll talk about it. But I think we have very kind of clearly discussed the impacts that are going to be felt to areas north and to the east and to portions of coastal Central America and some of the other islands that could be impacted as well. Again, you have a specific question about the forecast, drop it in the comments section below. Thank you for liking, thank you for subscribing. You know we're not just on YouTube, friends. You can find Meteo Mundo across all of social media, Instagram, X, TikTok, Facebook, mymeteomundo@gmail.com. You want to send me a picture or video or any business inquiries as well. As always, I appreciate you very much. Again, thank you for joining me here at Meteo Mundo. You have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I will see you soon.